Hello everyone! I gotta do my customary wipe the camera before I start. Hi, welcome. I'm Jen, owner of Expertly Dyed Art by Science. One of these days I'll actually talk a little bit about where my name came from and why I always start my videos in the exact same way. But just a couple of announcements before we actually get underway with the actual spinning. Today I'm going to be spinning some mulberry silk over the fold. So we've already got a few people in the live stream. So I was talking to Sonia at the start, and then Chris and Crystal have shown up. But I just put out an Instagram post kind of sort of lamenting about how difficult it is to be a crafter in a world that's super fast paced, because it's actually the same thing I feel whenever I examine my academic history. So it takes time to digest thoughts, and a lot of academics come off being very neurotic, including myself, where it's like we're constantly pressed to get things published and ideas out there and go to conferences and teach and research and all that stuff. And sometimes I feel like I personally would be better off if I just had a little bit more time, and then I could put more time into it without feeling the need to constantly put content out. So these live streams on Saturdays, off to a good start. These live streams on Sundays have been really helping me like give you some more updates about what's going on behind the scenes and doing some spinning and all that stuff, where I'm still working on editing videos. I just can't get them out once a week. The YouTube algorithm really likes it when I can, but the reality is I work a ton and I'm not always doing Expertly Dyed. I have to have a set revenue stream for myself, because I can't just do this full time. I have to do this full time in addition to the other part-time work that I do. So yeah, this is sort of like the halfway point, trying to get a little bit of both worlds. But I did want to announce that I will have my next tutorial going out Monday for patrons to watch ad-free, and then on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, for everybody else. So yeah, so please, we've got some love going around in the chat, which is really great to see, people helping each other. Yeah, so I will be making that announcement at some point, probably tomorrow afternoon in the UK, and probably in the morning for those of you in the US. But I'll probably try to get it launched around 8 p.m. both Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday, depending. I usually have a thing on Tuesday evening, so I'm not always home, and I like to be home when the video goes live so that we can like chat about stuff as the video is going. So I wanted to give a couple of quick updates about other projects. So the last couple of weeks I've been doing this flax spinning, and so I finished this. It was 546 yards of this linen 2-ply, and I boiled it for an hour and I mangled it to finish it. And I think it weighed 90 grams. I didn't write that on the label, but it weighs 90 grams. So this is actually a lot of fun. I don't know how many yards I'm going to need for a couple of placemats. If anyone knows how much yardage you need off the top of your head, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to have to spend some time looking up numbers. But it looks really nice. It's more gray than I thought it might be. And I think this is probably because it was harvested after it went to seed. which will produce a grayer looking flax. It can also turn a bit gray if it's been retted in a field rather than retted with just water, like water retting in a stream. And it was pretty consistent, and actually this was the only little bit I had left after the plying. So my bobbins were fairly equal. There's probably only about 20 yards difference between the two bobbins, so that was kind of lucky. I'll probably just take that off and use it for maybe holding bats together or something, I'm not sure. It's kind of, it's like a silvery gray, and you can't really see unless you're in person, but it has kind of like this silky sheen to it. So thank you to everyone who was with me during the live streams when I spun this. I have produced a plying video, which I'm going to be editing whenever I get time. So I've got all the footage, and I have a plan for it. I just need to put it into my schedule. With a higher res camera, you'll actually be able to see more up close what I was doing. It's not going to be a tutorial because this was literally the first time I've actually spun linen. So there was a lot of trial and error with getting everything set up, and there are people out there who do a much more beautiful job, but I think for the first time I did pretty well. But that's also because I've spun tons of wool, and you know, being able to switch between these different types of fibers, you know, it's a transferable skill. And so of course, you know, if you've been spinning for a long time, then switching between materials is a lot easier than when you're first learning how to do it. So quite pleased with this. The other thing that I finished, well, I say finished, I almost finished it, but my sweater. This is the one that I wasn't confident yet to actually use the hand spun for my hand spun sweater. So what I did was I just took these two yarns. This is the Columbia and the Merino from an old failed weaving project. I created this V-neck sweater based on my gauge, and then I didn't really do any shaping, but I did add some ribbing to the back so that it would have a nice flattering look on my body. And I put it on, it fits perfectly. All I have to do now is actually do the finishing on the V-neck edge. So right now it's just the cast on. Yeah, well, this was actually the cast on in the back here. So that's just the cast on edge. So it's rolled right now. So once this is done, I'll wash it, and then I'll be able to post the notes on what I did. So if you wanted to make this for yourself, it's really super duper easy. And it combined two different hand spun yarns. So it's really great for people like me who might spend 4 ounces of this and 4 ounces of that, and they happen to be similar gauges, but there's not enough for an actual sweater of the one type of yarn. So mixing and matching is, you know, how this project came together. But then as a result, I can now figure out how much yardage I used for the sweater, so that when I go to dye my hand spun, I know that I'm going to have enough yardage to complete a sweater, because that's the other issue. But speaking of dyeing, I have, well, in total I'll have 24 repeatable colorways in my shop on Etsy, excuse me, on Etsy. I'm sorry. I normally edit this stuff out of a video. So these are the little woven samples that I've been producing so far for all of my colorways. So this one is Montezuma's Horde. It has kind of like some autumn browns with a little bit of olivey green. This one I love. It's like really bright and blue. This one is called Murex. and I was, my supervisor, she doesn't actually deal with dyes directly, but being a Romanist, she studied a lot of Roman textiles, and Murex is the purple dye. So, for some reason, yeah, Murex, snails, exactly. So this is what I was thinking of when I designed this particular colorway, which looks really nice woven. It kind of has almost like this plaid look, which I love. So when I designed these colorways, what I wanted to do was have some that were high contrast and some that were low contrast. So for those of you who like little variations in color for a bigger project, and you don't want anything that's like loud, then there's some colorways for you for that. And then there's other colorways that are much more bold with the disparity between shades and saturation and colors. So if you wanted to make something that was very much a statement, great for accessories, then I had some colors for those purposes as well. So this is another one. This is called Edge. And this one, it kind of gives me this like late grunge era, like 1993 vibes. And it's kind of got some pale greens with some yellows and a little bit of purple, just to give it kind of like that edge, right? So I'd say these two are what I would call low contrast colorways. Like you could imagine having a big piece of fabric with this color, and it wouldn't be garish or bold or make you feel uncomfortable wearing it as a sweater. So for me, I love high contrast colors, but normally as accessories, not so much as like a sweater. But obviously, to each their own. If you want to wear it as a sweater, by all means. And then this one, which is again one of those high contrast colorways. This one is called Copper Ore, so it's got some greens with orange. And again, this one I think looks lovely woven. So some of these I've already put on Instagram, but I will be posting them with nice lighting and everything when I'm actually posting them to Etsy. So if you're interested in any of these colors, they're available on Etsy, dyed to order. And I've also got a third yarn, which is this one down here. Because it's a little bit cloudy today, I've had to turn on my lamp, which kind of washes things out a little bit. So this one, I'll just open it. I have just superwash merino at the moment, but I have plans to expand into non-superwash yarns. But I've got a 4-ply sock sport yarn, and then I've got 4-ply kind of like double knit light worsted yarn. And this one is a 2-ply Aran yarn, and this is going to be absolutely wonderful for making sweaters. So I know that not everybody is a spinner, and so, having some luscious, soft, fluffy yarns for those cozy knits in beautiful colors. So I forgot how I started that sentence. Anyway, I'm really excited about these because they are very soft and squishy. The DK weight is thinner than this, obviously, but it's not quite as poofy. So this, I really love single, like superwash merino single yarns. So I've got a few of those in my shop, but I'm always worried about abrasion. And this one being a 2-ply, it's kind of closer to the softness that you get from a single yarn versus a multi-plied yarn. So if you wanted to make, some comfy sweaters, these are, I actually don't remember the yardage. I think there's about 160 yarns per 100 grams. And this is pretty chunky weight, so you can knit up a sweater really quickly with something like this, or even a blanket. That would also be nice. Or if you're new to spinning and you don't have a lot of hand spun, you can actually intersperse, commercial yarns that have been hand dyed with your hand spun. So, the last thing I wanted to talk about was some of the work that I do for a colleague. So on Monday afternoons I go and I do work for her, and the kind of work that I do is actually kind of interesting since it relies on skills that not necessarily everyone should have or everyone does have. And I think that a lot of people probably should have more skills in how to make, basic stitched repairs. So like putting on buttons or sewing up a hole in some jeans. So I've been helping her with this corset. And this is a functional corset, which is going to help with just kind of getting around. So for those of you who are a little bit larger up top, it's a challenge sometimes just finding things that will fit. And I know that as I've gotten older, I've also gotten larger in that area, and I am increasingly going to Corsetry to solve some of these problems. So this is a vintage corset pattern that we've got for her, and I've put it together. We've got the seams on the outside rather than on the inside, but you can kind of see a little bit how it looks. We've got some extra fabric so that we can do a more custom fit. This has been kind of a fun project to work on. Yeah. So, that's the back side. For those of you who do a little bit of sewing or follow like Bernadette Banner, she's got a book out, and this was sort of re-inspired by that book that she's got out. So this is one of the other paid jobs that I get each week, doing those things. Anyway, so yeah, so corsets, the ones that I've worked on for me, they fit the underbust, but the ones that I probably should be working on are the ones that do the overbust, just because you make one corset and you take really good care of it and it lasts for years. I mean, potentially much longer, but they're adjustable. And since I don't typically change my shape too much, I find that the disposable nature of modern bras to give me a lot of anxiety, because a corset, it's made out of cotton, so it's more breathable, and it's flexible. So if you are fluctuating in your weight each month, right, that happens. So you can actually just lace yourself in looser or tighter depending, and it actually really helps with giving you support, because a corset is designed to put all of your bosom weight onto your hips and just distribute it across your torso, rather than these little strappy bits and the band that goes underneath. So I've been learning a lot about how to fit corsets to be more custom for a particular figure, rather than just, for cosmetic, Halloween, or reenactment type stuff. Just, thinking about it in terms of everyday. So, yeah, they can be very uncomfortable if they're not well fitted, but this is also the reason to go through several iterations. So this is, I think, number 2 of this pattern. We're pretty close, but there's still more work that needs to be done. Anyway. Anyway, so I've been yammering on for 20 minutes and we haven't gotten down to spinning, but this is actually pretty common. I talk a lot. Aww. So there's been some comments going on. Yeah, the swatches are actually really nice to see how the colors play out, because in my head I get a sense of how they're going to look once I've dyed them. But it's also nice to see how they actually turn out. So, like I said, I'm going to be posting more of those over the coming weeks on Instagram, and then also to the listing on Etsy. So, yeah, I really am a fan of mixing and matching hand-spun with commercial yarns in woven projects. So, today we are going to be spinning this mulberry silk over the fold. So I had a bunch of this mulberry silk and I dyed it I just shoved it in with my the wool that I was dyeing a few weeks ago. I just shoved in a bunch of silk, and this one I think I put too much dye in, and so I threw in some silk to kind of help absorb the extra dye, which is a really great hint if you are at home dyeing. Have some silk on hand. Doesn't matter if it's mulberry silk or tussa silk, doesn't matter if it's like combed top or silk laps or noils or something like that. So silk really attracts the dye, and it takes care of any excess dye that might be left over. Yeah, a silk mop. So this was kind of chained up. It was like chained like a crochet chain, kind of like this when I did the dyeing. So there's these bits that are white, and that's why I've got 3 individual pieces rather than one big long piece. So the idea is to pull off a bit, like so. And then I'm going to be spinning over the fold. Now I did this a couple weeks ago with the bamboo, and I really liked it, but I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted to see what it was like. And every time I have spun mulberry silk, it's always been in a worsted preparation. So I basically spin from these ends, these end pieces, so I spin straight out towards the wheel with that bit. But with this way of spinning, I'm actually just holding it over my finger like that, and I'm going to pull off from here. So this is basically the middle of the fiber. I'm going to bring this a little closer. So this bit here, this is the middle of the fiber. And hopefully I'll be able to get a nice thin yarn. I'm looking for a 3-ply lace weight. Possibly might be cobweb, I don't know. But I want it to be really fine, because every single time I have spun silk, it's been a little bit too chunky. And yes, I'm spinning it with a very large whirl because I prefer to spin this way. If you don't want to treadle as fast, the other thing that you can do is switch out to your smaller whirl. So I've got a Chomsky minstrel here. I'm going to show you. So this is a double drive, and this is the sort of small whirl size here. And this is the large whorl size, which I also have set up here with a larger whorl. A larger whorl. So you can set this up so you're saving yourself from treadling a bunch. But when I have tried to spin like this in the past, I've just not enjoyed it. Probably should just do it again to see if I still like it or not. But I'm fine spinning like this, but you have options, of course. And I don't mind if I'm doing things a little bit backwards, because that's just how I like to do it. So that's really quite fun. Can you see that even? I don't have a spinner's control card anymore. I had one, and it is probably lost forever. I didn't have it when I went home to see my mom back in, well, just before the start of the pandemic. I think I pulled off a little bit more than just a staple. And that's probably because this end bit that gets dyed, it kind of clumps up on itself. I'm just turning this down a little bit. Oops. Rubbing against my tripod. Yeah, so it wasn't with my mom when I went and visited her at the start of the pandemic, so I'm pretty sure it's just lost in translation. I mean, lost in translation. Lost into the ether. So I'm not necessarily great at spinning a short forward draw because my inclination is to pull back. So I'm also going a little bit slow in order to achieve that. But I am still trying to maintain the diameter, the grist, by how many fibers I'm pulling out. And I can see that here in this little drafting zone area. I haven't decided exactly what I would like to produce with this. One of the things that I have done in the past that I've used silk for is for applying against wool so that you can make a nice like boucle effect yarn. But if I'm spinning this really, really fine and making a 3-ply, I could also justify buying myself a new rigid heddle. So I think I have a 10 dent rigid heddle for my Kromsky harp loom. And I think that if I just got a slightly smaller dent rigid heddle loom, or heddle for my loom, then I could make myself a silk scarf, because I've never had anything that's 100% pure silk. Ever. In all the years that I've knitted and made yarn, I've just always used wool, or wool blended with a little bit of silk. So I think if I get that, I'll also be able to make my placemats as well. And then the only other hurdle is finding some time for the actual weaving process. So yeah, that whole time thing is always really difficult. But if I make it a project to record and like do during live streams, I'm more inclined to actually accomplish it, and I'm pretty sure that there are people out there who just like to watch things get made and be inspired by how other people have made stuff. So yeah, so I'll consider this is one of my projects, maybe for this year. I don't know, I still need to get back to my hand-spun sweater. You know what I didn't do before I started? Which is something that you should always do, especially when you finish one skein, one project, one bobbin, and before going to the next. You should always oil your wheel. So I'll oil that here in a second. Especially since I think the last time I spun was Tuesday? I think Tuesday was the last day I spun because I had to finish the filming. So I'll just put that there. Can you see the silk okay? I mean, there's no way I can really zoom in. Let me know if oh, see if we can get you a little closer here. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. Because it's also tethered to the plug up there. Oh. You know, I imagine, going back to what Sonia's asked about corsets and back pain, it might actually help with that particular issue. So one of the things that you could do is, if you had a pattern that fit you really well, you could actually modulate it a little bit, so you could have one that has a lot of boning in it. So if you want a lot of structure and you know, you don't want to look amazing in a dress, then you would have this corset that fit you like a glove, and that would be good. You can also have one that has cording, so that's another version of doing the boning with cotton. So like cotton yarn just held between the two pieces of fabric. So there's sort of like that texture on it, and it gives you a lot of structure in key places on the corset, but it's much more flexible than the boning. So if you need to like bend over and pick things up from the floor or do like housekeeping stuff, excuse me, that might be really useful for you in that regard. Of course, the other option would be they have like athletic corsets. They're historical athletic corsets that have a bunch of eyelets put into them so that they're more breathable. That might be a good option because it's still supporting everything up top, but you also have a lot of flexibility, you have room to breathe and everything. So I'm kind of on a campaign to liberate women so that we have more choices, because, you know, not to get too political and everything, but a lot of women now have fewer choices in America. So if there's an option that allows you to kind of reclaim some element of your life that, you know, you don't necessarily want to get rid of your figure, right? And a lot of modern clothing tends to look best on women with small bodies anyway. It's not the norm. People are all sorts of shapes. And with corsets, it actually gives you a lot of options, because you can have corsets that you wear under stuff that can be customized. So you can have a busk in the front, or a zipper, or some other kind of closure, or no closure. You can just have it stitched closed. You could have some that you wear outside of your clothing. It's all providing the same support, but you know, you can make it with fashion fabric. So a nice sexy black silk corset that you wear with like a white flowy dress would look amazing. And yet that corset is providing necessary support, right? Not just for your bosom, but for your whole upper torso. So I've been like a full convert to the possibility of just making corsets for myself. And like I was saying before, once you've made it, that's it. You can just make more as needed. You can change them around. And yeah. You can have short length corsets, full length corsets, underbust, overbust. There's a lot of variation out there. So once you've pretty much made one, you can just keep making them. So this is a little bit difficult because my hand is a bit sweaty. So it's kind of clumping up the silk a little bit. So it's not catching on my fingers like I thought it might. But it is definitely more difficult when my hands are getting a little bit warm. So it's not just sliding off as nicely as the bamboo was, but that's okay. So corsets can be made out of a variety of materials, but you want something that is really tightly woven, and the fabric that works best for corsets is cotillo. It's basically like alternating herringbone with a thin cotton yarn that's been very tightly woven, and that will be even stronger than calico fabric. So because it's made out of cotton, it's extremely breathable, and it's not going to have any elasticity. But once you have the once you have the inner part of a corset, so you can use the cotillo inside and put all your boning and stitching on the inside part, and then you can stitch on your fashion fabric. So it could be silk, it could be polyester, it could be whatever you want, whatever color. And then you have all of the structure and reinforcing with the cotillo fabric, which doesn't have to be beautiful. And then you have this beautiful fabric on the outside that just kind of, kind of gives you that illusion that your body is just naturally that way. But there's also a lot of structure going on inside that's holding everything where it should be. Or, if not necessarily where it should be, where you want it to be. So I'm really looking forward to the chance to actually make my own. So I've been wanting to get back to the underbust corset that I started working on previously. I've just not had time because of everything else going on. And I probably should just spend time on myself, but I think this is one of the other issues of being probably neurodivergent is I end up putting things out there for everybody else and doing very little for myself, unfortunately. Ooh, so that's looking pretty good. It's not quite as thin as I thought it was going to be. It's looking a bit more like a fingering weight yarn. So hopefully you can see that. That's how it would look if it was a 3-ply. So I'm probably just going to chain ply this yarn when I'm done. But yeah. And the color so far is really subtle, which is kind of how I thought it would be. So whenever you see dyed top, wherever, when you have these little white spots and the colored spots, well, maybe if I show you this green spot, it'll be a little easier to see. So these little green, like this greenish spot right here, because there are white spots around it, it's actually, when you spin it, it's actually going to be much more subtle in that area because the color is kind of being blended with the white around it. So this yarn is going to be very subtle, like it will have color, but it will be extremely pale. And everything in my accessories wardrobe is really saturated and usually quite extreme. So I have a hot pink and kind of olivey green scarf that I wove a few years ago with yarn that I actually bought when I was in Copenhagen for a textile seminar. And then I've got my many breeds scarf, which is reds and whites and grays. But I don't have anything that's really subtle like this. Even the ones that I've knitted are pretty bold. So, yeah. So this is looking about like the staple length of this mulberry silk. It's really soft and fluffy. And I'm still worried about how hot and sweaty my hand is getting, but it's, as long as I'm working with small amounts, it's not going to cause a problem, because if I mess up this a little bit, oh well. Yeah. So just Chris said her Kromsky came with an 8-dent huddle. I don't know what mine is. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's 10, but I'm not sure. It would probably have to be more like 12 in order for it to be the right spacing for this yarn. And especially for this one, because this one is actually going to be thinner. So this is the linen. Get it to focus. Well, hi Maureen. Yeah, so this is a little thinner than this yarn, which means if I want to weave with this, it's going to have to be, hi Sharon, it's going to have to be a slightly smaller dent. I guess it comes in a size 12, maybe? I don't know. I'm not as familiar with all the weaving as I am spinning and knitting. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm really happy with the linen. I'll have to take some high quality photos and post it somewhere. I keep saying I'll get back to my blog. I just, it's just one more thing, and yeah, I probably should just do it, because then I'll stop feeling anxious about it. So Sonia's a bit of a rebel. She's going without a bra. Yeah. Squatting down to pick stuff up is better for your back anyway than bending over. But yeah, start a revolution. Everyone needs to have, every person who wants support should have a really good corset to wear, no matter who you are. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who will do things for others and not for myself. And what it usually amounts to is taking a bigger bite of the world than I'm actually able to deal with. And sometimes I wish that wasn't the case, because most of the stuff that I end up doing, especially for work, paid work, it just goes completely unnoticed. So I work in a chocolate shop on Saturdays, and I'm always committed to doing a really good job, but because of inflation and the pandemic and everything else that's been going on in the UK, I came into the job with a premium. So I was, so the national minimum wage was £8.70 per hour. And when I first started my job back in October last year, I was being paid £9.48. And now that the minimum wage in the UK is £9.50, I'm now paid minimum wage £9.50. So I got a 2p raise. So not only does everything cost more, but now I'm making even less than I should, given what I started at. And it has no impact on me with my job, because like I'll still do an excellent job. Like my work ethic has never suffered. I've always done a really good job. And you know, I'm not going to be compensated for it. And it's not necessarily because my boss is horrible or anything. He's actually really wonderful. He's a wonderful person. But it's sort of like, because of the circumstances, he can't really pay me more. So I'm thankful that the minimum wage here is at least enough where I feel like I can sort of make it each month, given how little I end up working. But it does kind of suck when you think about, you know, how much effort I put into my job, which is to teach people about chocolate and to give them a good time and to make everything feel really effortless. So in a sense, it's like what I do for Explode Died. All the stuff that you know, I put out there in terms of content, especially for free. Like, you can come to my YouTube channel and never pay me a dime and learn quite a lot about spinning and dyeing and everything else. So, I mean, it comes with its own little reward. So, like, on Saturday, there was a little girl, she was only 6. She had such a good time that when she was all done, she came up and gave me a hug. Yeah. So, of course, that makes me do my job even more. It's like when you guys are all here with me on a Sunday, because I no longer can go to my guild meetings on Saturdays because I work. That's like the main day that I work, and I can't justify taking it off each month. So I'm basically doing this instead with you guys because I still need that sense of community. So if you had talked to me like 2 hours ago, I'd have been like, I don't know if I want to do it. Because we need to take the time off and just relax. But I think well, I know that I'm happier doing this now with everybody than if I were to just be sitting on the couch doing, like, nothing. Of course I wouldn't be doing nothing. I'd still be crafting, but it's that sense of community that I would be missing, and, you know, kind of getting out of my head for a second, being like, you know you're going to enjoy this, so just do it. It is its own therapy, and I'm happier doing it than not doing it, but sometimes I wish I didn't give myself the commitment, but then I know that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't, oh, a piece of silk just flew away. I wouldn't feel as rested for the week going ahead, if that makes sense. Yeah, so there is an adjustable heddle from Kromsky, and I've seen those, especially for those of you who like to use different gauges of hand-spun. So you can have some thinner yarns with some thicker yarns, and you just slot in, they're basically individual pieces that you put in the rack, and then you can put your yarns in there, based on the gauge. So if you want to do really beautiful art scarves with massive differences between gauge, then you know the sky's the limit, right? So I have seen those. Normally, what I end up doing is I just go with string heddles, and it takes longer, but you know, I still get something that I want in the very end. So it just requires a little bit more concentration, I guess. So Michelle, hi Michelle, thank you for joining us today, has said she used to have an ice pack cover with a towel and placed a cotton glove on top of it, so when her hands felt damp she would just wipe her hands and then put the gloves on for a minute or two. That's kind of interesting. So that was in reference to knitting. That might actually work for spinning. So that's an interesting idea. Oh, yeah, the sun has gone behind some clouds, so that's why the lighting keeps changing in here. The minimum wage for ages 16 to 20. So in the UK, there are different wage bands depending on your age. So I think if you're 15, you can legally work. I think you get paid like something really, really tiny, like £4 an hour. And then if you are between the ages of 16 to 21, you get paid a certain amount as minimum wage. And then if you are between the ages of like 21 and 25, you get paid another minimum wage. And then anyone over the age of 25 gets paid a different minimum wage amount. So I am, I know it might surprise you, but I am over 25. I had a birthday on Wednesday this week. So, you know, it's enough, but I think that only $9.50 probably only amounts to about $12 an hour, and that's with many years of experience being in retail, like 20 years of experience being in retail, and having a doctorate and being very skilled in lots of things. It just sometimes sucks. But you know, at least I have a job, and to be honest, my boss, he was actually looking for someone in hospitality for this position, because you have to be knowledgeable and confident in front of people, which, you know, doing conferences all the time, doing videos for YouTube and everything. I've gotten, well, and also I used to teach martial arts back in the States, so, you know, having to do all that as well. And I've got a lot of experience talking to people and, you know, being an educator at the same time. But I also have my love of drama. For anyone who knows, Sundays are our gaming days, so I'm the dungeon master for our D&D group. So I come up with stories for our sessions, and because I'm a glutton for punishment, I am doing a homebrew game, so everything is custom. All, like, most of the enemies, I end up customizing, all the villains, all of the NPCs, the entire world, all of the places in it, the world's history is all stuff that I've created. So back when I had more time, it made sense, but now that I have no time, it's sort of like, oh dear, gotta come up with something for this session, which is actually what I have to do after this live stream. I have to come up with this evening's session. Oh. It's fish and chips night. So, yeah. Yeah, so hopefully that answered your question, Maureen, about wage stuff in the UK. Yeah, Chris, that's a great way to think of it. It's sort of like a virtual guild. Um, and speaking of stuff coming up, there's Tour de Fleece. So if anybody is in need of wool for the Tour de Fleece challenge, obviously I've got loads of stuff in my shop, and I'm done photographing all of my new yarns, so I'll be able to get back to actually carting up some wool. I have added a few new things to the shop. So yeah, these events are really nice for people like me because you know, the sales go directly to fund me feeding myself. And there are lots of I think Atomic Fiber Company calls them calls people like her and me micro small businesses. So I've watched her sort of have similar struggles as me, and she's been doing this for longer than me as well. So given how long she's been doing it, she's been sort of at the rise and fall of demand when it comes to spending habits of people. So this is also about like growing the community, making more spinners, more knitters, more weavers, more crafters in general. We all benefit. We love doing things with our hands, and it's good for our brains. It increases neural plasticity, and it gives us a lot of relief from the constant everything that's always going around us. Yeah. So Tour de Fleece is coming up. My challenge is going to be, I've got this big bag of Portland. I'm going to card some up and have some of it available in the shop. I've probably got the equivalent of about 3 fleeces. So obviously I'm not going to be using all of it, but I'm going to be using some of it to spin a little bit every day. So I haven't really been able to do this since I think 2019 was the last time I actually had the time to spin every single day. So this year's Tour de Fleece, I'm going to give myself the challenge for the duration to just spin a little bit every day, even if it's like 10 minutes. I'm going to do that and post the result online. So my camera is old on my phone here, so be prepared for some not so flattering looking photos. And my goal is to spin enough yarn so that I can weave a blanket. So it might just be enough for a lap throw. So I've got cats, they love to be on wool. So I think I might at least aim for that amount of yardage. But at the very least, I could do like a cat blanket. So that's only about, I don't know, 6 ounces of wool or so. I should be able to get enough to do that. And it's probably going to be a combination of silk, Portland, and some Angelina. Because my cats have, well, Layla, you probably heard her bell just now. She has a tendency to put things into her mouth, so she chews cardboard like no one's business, and plastic, and she'll eat it. So every once in a while you'll get this yowl of, I don't feel well, then she throws up a piece of plastic. Yeah, so I have to be careful about what I leave around the house so that she doesn't ingest it. So just going to try and stick with fibers that will pass harmlessly through her body if she happens to get them in. So I'll probably restrain my hand when it comes to Angelina, because normally I love to put a bunch in there. And the wonderful thing about Angelina is it makes everything sparkly without it being kind of in your face. So I remember someone asking me ages ago if I could make bats without any Angelina. And she said, I hate using it because it makes everything look like you're wearing sequins, which are meant to be extremely reflective. But when you actually spin it, especially in the amounts that I tend to use, it kind of gives it this slight little sparkle, catches the sunshine just right, but I don't feel like I'm wearing something covered in sparkles. So I wore a cardigan during a live stream a few weeks ago. It's the green one. That has a load of Angelina in it, and you can barely tell. It looks a bit sparkly in the sunshine. That's it. And it doesn't even look like sequins. It's just sort of like this little glint every once in a while. Okay, so Maureen has asked about the minimum wage. If it's the same across the board, there were age differences in the past. I'm pretty sure that there are still age differences now with the minimum wage. So because I'm over 25, for my category, the minimum wage is $9.50. So I imagine for people who are 15 right now and working, their minimum wage is something like maybe $4.20, $4.50 per hour. Oh wow, in 1999 your husband was 20 and making £3.22 per hour. Whoa. That's crazy. I didn't know that. When I was first working back in 2000, that was my first job. I was 16 and I was paid $5.35. In 1967, my dad's first job, he was making $2.80 an hour. So he had much more spending power back in those days than I did. I basically worked enough so that I could afford a car, and that was it. Yeah, I love role-playing games. So I've played Baldur's Gate 3 online, or not online. You can play with friends on a server. So that's a pretty ambitious task of converting a pen and paper game into a video game, because there's just so many rules and contingencies, and it's all about the story. In 1990, you were paid $5 an hour to do printmaking. That sounds pretty cool, though. When I was, let's see here, I was 19, and I had worked in other grocery stores and department stores before this. I got paid $7 an hour. And that was much better than when I first started. It was only a couple years difference. But then I had a master's degree, and I was working for the state archaeologist. I had a lot of responsibilities because I was sort of monitoring all of the site surveys for the entire state. And I was paid $10 an hour with a master's degree in 2012. And I basically didn't have enough money to get through. So I was between paying for my student loans or paying for health insurance. And I was living in the cheapest housing that I could get that wasn't completely run down. Yeah. That's part of the reason why I started Expedite, is to get extra money to help pay for my student loans, because I couldn't actually afford it. And the annoying thing, so I made like about $17,000 a year working 40 hours a week without, I didn't have any sick pay or sick days, I didn't have any vacation days, I had nothing. I was just hourly. So if I didn't work an hour, I didn't get paid at all, no matter the reason. And yeah, you know, basically I was working above an entry-level position, and I had a lot of responsibility, and yeah, just I could barely afford to pay for my expenses each month. So I started Expedite to kind of help with that. And I was really happy that it did, but it still wasn't enough. So that's part of the reason why I left to go to Korea, because the amount of debt that I was surrounded with, like the promise that, you know, getting an education was going to help with this was so strong even back then. And I was so committed to this story that it was going to help. I did it. And that's really not the case. And it still isn't the case. I owe $250,000, and I have no idea how I'm going to pay it. I can't even get through a month on my current wage. I get the help from, you know, sales with Expedite, so that I don't have to take the money that I earn here in the UK and send it to the US, because I still have to pay stuff in the US. And they don't care how little I get paid here. They still want me to pay all these things back. And I filed my taxes in June, well, June 15th this year, and I had to pay it with my credit card. Which obviously doesn't really help when you're trying to pay off that credit card. So it's all messed up. And try not to think about it too much, just because of how upsetting it is. But you know, at the end of the day, I just try to be really positive about all these situations, because it's much better to think positively than to think negatively. Because if you think negatively all the time, you sort of, you don't think about the solutions. You just think, oh no, everything's hopeless, I'm going to give up. But if you think positively, it helps you form strategies to help your current situation. Also, negative thoughts tend to cause more problems than they actually solve. So basically, as bad as things get, I sort of double down on thinking positively about stuff, because I know there's a solution out there, and the world is just pressing me to think a little harder about ways to solve whatever problem I find myself in. And sometimes when I'm having enough with it, I come on here and do some escapism with everybody in the stream. I do role playing, I play video games, I do all that stuff. Oh, thank you, Sonia. I put in the chat at the start that there is a hard piece of silk in this. It's like just straight up. I don't even know what that is. I guess it's a piece of silk. Probably didn't get fully decummed or something. Well, it was kind of fun. long before I really got into spinning, I was just playing around with the idea of what to do for my first master's dissertation. And I decided, excuse me, I decided I was going to get into this, and I had access to a local spinning and weaving guild. And I remember reading a post by somebody on Ravelry that if you want to sell wool, you have to spin it before you should be selling it. Because a lot of people around this time when Etsy first started to get really popular, like 2008, 9 era, a lot of people wanted to start dyeing wool and listing it there. So they would go to Ravelry and ask a bunch of questions, and this lady basically said, if you're going to sell wool, you need to work with it. Otherwise, you don't really know what you're selling. So when I actually finished my first master's and decided I needed to find a revenue stream, I knew it was going to be important to spin everything that I dyed in terms of wool, and everything that I carded on the drum carder. So I knew what I was putting out there for sale, and this is also why I say sometimes it's really difficult for me to give things up by listing the products to be available, because I would love to put it in my stash and spin it for myself. And the same thing with these yarns, like there's a good possibility that all of this investment is going to be like a bad gamble, and I'll just be stuck with all this yarn. But at least every colorway that I have dyed so far, I have loved. So, you know, just, it seems like it should make sense, but there are lots of people out there who sell products because it's like the next fad. And we all kind of suffer in the crafting world if someone puts out wool that's horribly felted or it looks pretty but terrible to work with, because it makes that particular buyer more wary in the future. And once they find somebody that they like, they're less likely to, you know, spread the wealth, which is what, I've always tried to do. I like buying from certain shops, but I also like to see what other shops have too. Because I know from my end that it helps with other people getting bits of my money than just the one shop that I like to go to. So, anyway, I'm glad you liked the bats. I don't qualify for tuition forgiveness because I've been in school for too long, and it's been in the UK. So if I was going to school in the US and all of my loans were for US institutions, then yes, I could qualify for some of that. But no, going to a foreign university means I'm disqualified from everything. Yes, bend those silk hankies, Crystal. It'll be very similar to this. Like, silk is a beautiful thing to spin, and I'm struggling still a little bit with how sweaty my hand is. It's like catching the fluffy bits here and kind of causing some trouble. It's still a lot easier to manage than it would have been if I wasn't spinning over the fold. And it's much thinner than I would have excuse me, been able to produce otherwise. So I'm happy about that. There's a lot to spin. I've got 3 of these pieces. Yes, thoughts cut grooves in your brain. And that's those neural pathways get exercised, and if you regularly think negatively, this is also about like brain chemistry and shifting brain chemistry through ways of thinking. So you have an emotional response to your thoughts, and that can release certain kinds of hormones. And if you want to change your brain chemistry, so you want to stop feeling bad about something, the best thing to do is find something that will help you shift your mood. And it could be something as simple as telling yourself, it's actually going to be okay. I know at the end of the day, I'm going to be okay. I have a support network, my partner. I have my mom, who would probably lay down her life and everything for me. So if everything just went upside down, she would give me money, and I sometimes have to avoid telling her so that she doesn't give me money, because I know she needs it as well. And there have been a couple of times I've just had to put out a call on Facebook to see if anybody has some spare change willing to throw me like 5, 10, 20 pounds to help me get through. And I've been extremely grateful to people who have helped. But I need a more permanent solution to these financial problems. And crafting is great for me because it's something I'm very good at, and something I've been doing for a long time, and something that I've been well educated in doing. But it's also about changing attitudes, and it's going to basically be a lot of people like me sort of talking about how great it is what we do. Yeah, so mentally shifting changes your brain chemistry, and it also prevents those negative pathways from being formed in your head. It sounds like it's all very hippy-dippy, but there's a lot of neurological research on how this works. It's part of the reason why people turned to knitting during the pandemic, because it was easy, it was accessible, people felt good doing it, and they're not only being productive, they're also being very creative through the process. And so that changes your brain chemistry. So rather than being depressed that you can't go outside and people are dying and it's a really horrible situation, it kind of helps us get through the worst bits so that we can continue staying at home and safeguarding ourselves and our neighbors from this situation, if it's not necessary for us to be out there just tooling around. It's, you know, those medical workers most definitely have seen some really tragic things, and you know, if we've turned to crafting to help us with our needs to, you know, be happy and mentally okay, then, you know, we're not contributing to that big problem and causing worse situations and mental conditions among people who they're trying to save us, basically. So I think this is another reason why crafting works so well during the pandemic. The invention of trousers. No, I have not. Yeah, so are you referring to the Chinese trousers that were found? Like, I think they were for horse riding trousers. If that's what you're talking about, let me know. Because if so, I have seen the documentary about that. Or for maybe you're talking about something else. The hankies are a bane of your spinning experience. Well, I mean, it could be a double-edged sword, doing it during the Tour de Fleece, but the video that I posted on silk spinning with hankies might be really helpful. So if you haven't seen that, please take a look at it. Um, yeah, so Michelle's pointed out word of mouth is very influential for buying, and that's actually part of the struggle. Is I do these promotions through like Etsy, or not Etsy, through Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, to let people know about what I do and the variety of things that I offer. And if you don't know how to make yarn, I will show you how to do that, all that stuff. You know, I don't get paid for the vast majority of all that stuff, and I can't pay anyone to do it for me, so I end up having to do it all basically for free, which takes a lot of time. But yeah, word of mouth, it's definitely something that I've used in the past to make decisions with my dollars, but I've also I think in part I've grown to have enough confidence to be able to take wool that I've bought from somebody else, and if it's not exactly what I want, or I get it and I'm like, I think I need to card it again, but I'm happy to do that. But I know that I'm also supporting that person, and if this is their side hustle, if this is their main job, it doesn't matter. I'm making somebody feel happy, and if I've ever had a problem with something that I've ordered, which I have had in the past, I just tell them, you know, I send them a message, because it's not within my best interest to review someone poorly. If it's something that I know it could be easily fixed and maybe no one has told them. So, yeah, word of mouth helps, but yeah, it's kind of difficult. I think even with that, I try to be slightly more balanced, so that I give my dollars to a whole range of people. Yeah, it is really hard to trust Etsy shopping. So I bought my partner some wool slippers for Christmas, and one of the shoes just fell apart within like a month of wearing them. Hasn't stopped him wearing them still, but it just kind of sucks. You know, they were for Christmas. And the shop was well reviewed, which makes it worse. Let's see here. Yeah, so Sonia's pointed out that kind of just forcing yourself to think about something else or something more positively, training new ways of thinking really does help. Yeah. It is definitely a mind over matter situation. Oh, thank you, Crystal. I am the lady with the curly hair and the nice wheel spinning the silk. I actually got my hair cut, if anyone noticed. It's shorter, slightly curlier. As a birthday gift to myself, I got my hair cut. So I got my hair cut last year on my birthday. Oh dear. It's my annual shearing. Oh no, what did I say? I'm skirting into contention territory now. Yeah, so the way that I've always thought about doing tutorials is making more fiber friends. So I love doing what I'm doing, and you know, if I can share that with somebody else and inspire them and, you know, give them the video that makes everything click, then I feel like whether they buy from me or not, is I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's less important that they buy from me and more important that these skills don't get lost and that there's lots of people who do this, because, you know, as we've sort of already hinted at, it's really great for lots of reasons. So it's economical if you are trying to budget and save money and make sure that you know, you're keeping yourself, your family warm and wearing nice things without having to break the bank over it. You know, basically what you're producing is something that is an heirloom. So you've made it today, but because of all of the time and attention you're putting into it, it might last another 20, 30, 50 years. Especially if it's being well looked after. So, you know, you learn a skill and it pays back dividends. I mean, they say that and it sounds like such a cliche to say here, but it's absolutely true. I don't know how many times I have saved myself money when I've been pretty much borderline broke, just by making my own yarn and making mittens, because mittens I go through like no one's business. Yeah, so the skill is more important than me being compensated for teaching people. But I do hope that, you know, I do get a sale here or there for all the teaching that I end up doing. That's like, I think, again, that whole neurodivergent thing, trying to make the world a better place at my own expense. Yeah. I got it cut. It's just short. So my partner, he's like, well, I asked him, I said, how should I get my hair cut? And he said, you were super cute when you got your hair cut last time. So, and it's kind of me making up for all those years before when I thought I can't pull off this hairstyle, but actually I can. And I used to see girls out there with curly hair, they would have like really unique haircuts. And I'm like, wow, they look so good. And then here I am getting my same haircut year in and year out. So it's not me trying to, you know, reclaim my youth or anything. So I just turned 38. But it's sort of reclaiming all those times when I didn't go out on a limb and just get a haircut. It was not a cheap haircut, but, you know, if you think about getting a haircut every 3 or 4 months, and I've just gotten it done once in a 12-month period, it kind of works out to about, I don't know, $20 a haircut. So yeah, the guy who cut my hair, he's been cutting hair for longer than I've been alive, so he knows what he's doing. And it's actually about 3 days old now. I think I washed it on Thursday, and it's Sunday, and the curls are really holding up. And all I've done is I've just let it air dry. I put some oil in there so that the curls hold. Yeah. When I first got it done, I was like doing this a lot. Oh yeah, so Chris, about the contentious waters regarding Etsy sellers. Yeah, it is a little upsetting to see you know, how these occasional bad sellers affect good sellers. I know back when I was I think it might have been 2015 or 16 when those big like arm knitted uh, yarns and blanket like arm knitted blankets that were made from just untwisted roving were becoming really popular. I was like, oh my god, how are these people earning such a fortune? You know? And it just turns out it was part of a fad. When you actually make those blankets, there's no twist and they're gonna get pulled apart like instantly. You start using it and like how are you gonna wash it? Oh my goodness. I'm finally old enough to cross the street by myself. Yeah, I watched a video. There's two ladies. I forget the video now. Um, but it was sort of like the video I probably had going around in my head at this time, but I was busy with my PhD, so I couldn't like devote any time to complaining about this thing. And they showed what would happen when you started to use it, and then when you wanted to wash it, they fall apart. It's like you're much better just, you know, getting a blanket knitted with chunky yarn that has multiple plies. So, you know, fads, people get onto those fads and then they sort of ruin the sales of people like me where, you know, I'm selling a particular product to be spun or felted or turned into something else, you know, entirely, not even yarn, could be something completely different. And, you know, they're basically like coming in for this trend, making a lot of money and taking away buyers from me. And then at the very end, you basically have someone who had like I've seen this now on various Facebook groups where people are like, well, I bought all this arm yarn and I don't know what to do with it. I hate working with it. Can someone just take it from me? And then I'm shocked to hear how much they paid for it. I'm just like, it's not even hand dyed, right? So it's a little bit frustrating to say the least. um, yeah, I don't know who Maureen O'Hara is. Interesting. Yes, I really love this cut. I basically just let him do whatever he wanted to it. I said it has to grow out and still look okay. And it has to be very zero investment. Like I'm fine to like put some stuff in it, kind of scrunch it up and let it air dry, but I can't spend 20-30 minutes in front of a mirror every single day trying to get it to look okay. So it lasted a whole year, that haircut. He told me I needed it fixed. And he probably would have preferred it if I came back after about 6 months, but oh well. um, yeah, he's such a wonderful stylist, and I love his attitude because he's always just like, I'll tell him about this notion I've developed from having my hair cut by other stylists in the past, and he's just like, why do you think that? And I'm like, I don't know. I've been told. I sort of defer to them. They're the experts. They went to school to do all this stuff. They have all the experience. So, you know, I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. But yeah, he's very unassuming to look at him. You would not think that he was this amazing hairstylist. And my partner, he's got a hairstylist in town that does like wonders to his hair because he's got like stick straight hair. And if it's not cut right, he looks like he's a 12-year-old boy, which obviously is frustrating when you're in your 30s. um, oh, I'll have to look up Maureen O'Hara. Yeah, because it sounds like, well, this hairstyle also kind of reminds me of Clara Bow a little bit because of the way it's short up in the back and a little bit longer on the sides, but she didn't really have curly hair like this. Yeah, roving blankets are a terrible idea. Oh yeah, that would have actually been a brilliant way to get a hold of all that roving for really cheap. Interesting. Okay, well, I have to let you guys go. I've been going for about an hour and a half. I've spun a fair amount of yarn. I'll probably continue spinning this. I might do this next week, but my mom is coming for basically the end of July for my graduation, so she'll be here from around July 12th until August 3rd. So I'm probably not going to be doing live streams on those Sundays. I might do just to kind of keep on with things, but I haven't seen her for a couple of years. So I'm probably going to be just doing the Tour de Fleece posts, and obviously my shops will be open, so I'll be posting on Patreon and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I will be putting as much stuff into the shop before she gets here. I can't guarantee I'll be able to do anything while she's here, because we're actually hosting her in this room, so I'm going to be converting this space into a bedroom. So, hi Louise. Sorry you're coming right at the very end. But there's a whole hour and a half for you to go back and watch. And some little updates at the start. Yeah, so this is kind of a rambling episode like they all tend to be. But I hope you guys had a good time, got to do some crafting, have a little bit of escapism with me. If you've never spun mulberry silk, or if you've never really done spinning over the fold, this was my first time spinning silk over the fold, and it went pretty well. Turns out I did not need any hand lotion, so that's good. Having a dry hand helps. If there's anything about this you'd like to see in a video, I can record myself and do like a voiceover video with my better camera so that you can actually see in greater detail what I'm doing. So just, you know, post that in the comments below and I will add it to the list of videos to produce. But like I said, there's loads of stuff in my shop for Tour de Fleece, or if you're just looking to replenish your little, I'm trying to not say the word stash, because some people find it relates too much to drug use. So your fiber collection. Tomorrow, there's going to be a new tutorial for the patrons on Patreon. They're going to watch it ad-free first, and then available either a day or two after that for everybody else. So look forward to that. Eking it in just there at the end of June. So technically there was a tutorial this month. But yeah, so thank you all for joining me today and allowing me this opportunity to get some things off my chest. But yeah, I will see you in the next video. I'll let you know about live streams coming up, and I will get them scheduled if I'm going to do them. But otherwise, I'll see you on my other socials. So thank you so much for watching, everyone.